everyone, Eric Olsen from Helps, law firm for seniors and disabled persons. Good to have you here on Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. My name's Eric, attorney for 46 years under Helps. Helps is a national law firm. We have two missions. First is to protect seniors from debt collector harassment and Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. This is represented by the debt collectors from Olsen and the attorney. Second mission is to educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. It's one reason we have these wide sessions. Okay. You can put your questions in the chat feature. I'll address them there. Sound is very low. Push that right now. Sorry about that. How is that? I've got a microphone, but it doesn't pick it up too well. This does better. I'm trusting you can hear me now. Let me know. How's that? Still hear me okay? Assuming you can hear me okay. So good to have you here. So the topic, got a lot of things to talk about, but I put as a title, if I don't pay my debt, what will happen? And it came from, I was on the internet and I saw a question someone posed at another website. There was lots of answers. There's like a dozen answers, and they were all wrong answers. So this is the question the person posed. If an advanced elderly with only Social Security income and no assets isn't able to pay their credit card debt, what will happen? I was astounded at the answers people gave. People giving answers didn't know what they were talking about. But let's. And this is the person describing the situation. Apparently, it's a friend or one of the kids. It says she is 88 due to poor decision making and the rising cost of her everyday living expenses. I don't know if it's poor decision making or just life. Sometimes, it's not a matter of poor decisions. Things happen to people, and it's not their fault. They didn't intend for it to happen. It just happens. Rising costs of her everyday living expenses. She got behind on rent and utilities while trying to make the minimum credit card payments. She finally had to stop paying the credit card payments and is starting to catch up on the rent and utilities. Good for her. She needs to have a place to stay and she needs to have heat. So she needs to pay the rent and utilities. But of course, the credit card companies are threatening collections unless she comes up with hundreds of dollars to get caught up. These are all unsecured debts. Can they do anything to her since she only has Social Security and no assets? What should she do? Okay. So if you're a regular, you know what I'm going to tell you. But if it's your first time or you've only heard me once or twice, my most important message to seniors, and this is after over 4 decades of practice, is that your Social Security, your pension, your disability, your VA benefit, your retirement income is protected under federal and state laws. It can't be taken from you. This 88-year-old lady only has Social Security. It's all protected. So if you're 88, if you're 78, if you're 68, if you're 58, disabled and getting Social Security, no matter how old you are, your Social Security is protected. So is your pension. It doesn't need to be used to pay debt you can't afford to pay. Okay, you can use it for your rent and utilities, for your food, for your medicine, for the things that you need. Okay, Congress protected the money for a reason. They didn't want seniors to go without. And you're not alone. Almost half of seniors are classified as economically vulnerable A lot of them have debts they simply can't afford to pay. So don't think that you're unique. And and if you think it's because of poor decision making, no, we all make decisions that we wish we could have made otherwise, or wish we would have made another decision. And a lot of times it just happens. A spouse passes away. Maybe we help someone out uh, when we shouldn't have, or but you know we did it because we were trying to help a family member out. It could be a number of reasons. Okay, you lost a job, you became sick, you became ill. Maybe the interest rate was too high. Maybe you got suckered in by someone. I talked to someone this morning that got a timeshare, and they just got suckered into a timeshare. Okay, so you don't need to pay the debt. Okay, your income's protected. No one can take your Social Security. Um, so can they do anything to her since she only has Social Security and no assets? Um, well, I mean, they could sue, but they're not going to be able to collect from her. Well, we're going to talk about that today. Okay, what should she do? Do exactly what she's doing now, is not pay the debt. And if she doesn't want to have to deal with the collectors, that's one reason it helps us here is we represent seniors nationwide who have debt they can't afford to pay in order to stop harassment. Collectors harassment. So this person writes in, they say, I'm 63 years old and just started collecting Social Security benefits. With a lower income, I cannot afford to pay creditors a scheduled contract amount. Should I pay them what I can afford? Well, you don't have to. I mean, you could pay whatever you want. They can't really do anything to you, but uh, um, you've probably been paying them for quite a while, and you've been paying them a lot of interest. You're not going to lose any money off you. So you could make the decision to stop paying them. Now, if you don't pay them, they're going to call on the phone. They're going to send you demand letters. They could even sue. But uh, you can stop the contact from a debt collector with what's called a cease and desist letter. In 1978, the year I graduated from law school, a law was passed called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. That law provides if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors can no longer call or send demand letters. They have to leave you alone, and that's what helps us. We represent seniors. Now, you can also send the letter yourself if you want to, but the letter specifically says if you're represented by an attorney, the collectors have to deal with the attorney. And that's what we do is we represent seniors. They find out about us. They call us on the phone. We go over their situation with you. Uh, Sometimes seniors will call us 2, 3, or 4 or 5 times, maybe over a period of a couple of weeks, a month, a couple of months, sometimes even over years before they decide they want our help. And then they enroll. We enroll people over the phone. No one gets turned away. Cost is very minimal. It's affordable. Um, this person writes in, they say, hello, I understand about protected income, but what about disability income? I'm 62 and suffered a stroke 5 years ago, and I doubt I will ever get better. I'm being sued by a credit card. What were the wrong answers? I don't know if I got them handy or not. Um, I can't. I don't know if I can find them. I guess you would have been interested in seeing that. A lot of them told people to well call the creditor, try to work out, or call them and explain that she couldn't afford the debt. Her income was only, if you call them on the phone and try to explain your situation, they don't care. All they want to do is collect from you. Um, they just want to collect. That's all they want. I'm sorry, Rico. I can't remember the wrong, but there was a bunch of them. Um, Okay. This person contacts us, says, I'm 78 on Social Security and a pension. I recently saw a YouTube video regarding helps and would like more information. I'm currently paying a debt management company because I believe I should pay my debts. My problem came up when my wife died, some time back, and I lost her and her retirement income. That's a perfect example how people get in problems. If you're married and you're on a budget with you and your spouse, then one of you passes away, the survivor is going to get the higher of the two Social Securities. And one of the Social Securities is going to go away, and that can blow the budget to pieces. Okay? So what we tell this person is, I know everyone wants to pay their debt if they can, but sometimes we just get in a position where we can't do it. Okay? And that's what helps us here for, so that we can answer your questions, and then if you need our help, we can represent you so these creditors are going to leave you alone. You don't have to be harassed by debt collectors. So I mentioned before, once in a while I get a call from a senior that's into a timeshare. I talked to a nice lady this morning, senior, who had got involved with a timeshare, and she was wrapped up into paying $750 a month. If you can believe that. That's a lot of money. Um, and been paying it for several months, and now she just simply can't pay it. And she's worried. I think she was from Illinois. Okay. Could have been Indiana. But the homestead exemption, she had a home that was free and clear, that was worth quite a bit of money. The homestead exemption in the state where she was only like 15,000 if you're single, and she had a home that was worth several $100,000. So what's going to happen when she stops paying the timeshare? Because she can't afford it, and she's already stopped it. She says, I refuse to do it anymore. She says, I can't pay it. What is the timeshare going to do? There used to be a lot of advertisements, and there's not so many anymore, but there's probably a few about companies that get you out of a timeshare, and you pay them money to do it, and they charge quite a bit, a lot of money. A few years ago, I talked to I did 30 or 40,000 bankruptcies before I started Helps. My old firm is still in existence. My brother runs that firm. I hired all the attorneys there. Well, most of them. I think they've hired a few since I left. So I know them all. They're good friends. And I called them a couple of years ago and talked to my former partners. And I said, do you guys ever remember an instance where one of our clients who had a timeshare went back, got actually sued for money from the timeshare? None of them could remember. Now, I suppose it happens, but it's simply not the practice of timeshares, when you don't pay them, to sue you on the debt. Now, they could. Maybe I'm sure it has happened, but it's pretty rare. I mean, they couldn't remember a case, and we deal with thousands of people. And I explained that to this person I talked to this morning who enrolled in Helps. I explained to her, I said, well, you've got some equity in the home that's not exempt, but what's the creditor going to do? Are they going to sue you? I kind of really doubt it. Sometimes they'll send a letter to someone saying, okay, if you sign this deed, deeding us back the timeshare and pay us, $1,000 or some amount of money. I tell people in that case, just sign the deed, send it back to them, but don't send them any money. They just want to get it back so they can try to sell to someone else. Like I said, they normally aren't set up to try to sue people to collect on money on a timeshare. They may threaten you and stuff like that. So when this person enrolled in Helps, what we're going to do is send a letter out to the timeshare company and tell them that she's on Social Security, she can't afford to pay it, she's not going to pay it anymore. And that's what's going to happen. She's not going to pay it anymore. Uh, and we're going to represent her ongoing. So if they assign it to a different collector and she gets a notice 6 months, a year from now, 2 years from now, she can always, contact us. We'll send a cease and desist letter out to that new debt collector. That's the magic about helps is we represent people ongoing. It's not just one time where you literally your attorney forever, so you never have to deal with debt collectors. So can the veterans, Travis asks, can the Veterans Administration take your Social Security if you default? Yeah, they can. It doesn't happen very often. I call it other agency debt. So the creditors that we normally worry about taking our Social Security, regular creditors can't. It's protected. The only exception is the IRS and student loans, but student loans aren't coming after Social Security now. They stopped in June. Whether it's going to start up or not, I don't know. And if it does, there'll be a plan. It used to be an income-based repayment plan for lower-income seniors who wouldn't have to pay their student loans or only pay a small amount. Then the other is other federal agencies like the Small Business Administration, and it could be a federal agency, a different federal agency, which could be the VA. So yeah, it is possible for the VA to offset 15% of a person's Social Security for a defaulted VA loan. And I've seen it happen, but very rarely. If a federal agency were to go after your Social Security and offset 15%, I mean, you could file bankruptcy and deal with it that way. You may never need to worry about it, though, because they may never come after your Social Security. But it is possible, okay? But I wouldn't count on it happening, okay? So this person contacts us from Oklahoma. And they said, I received a small claim summons for, says Credit One. I found you on YouTube and received Social Security disability. Please help. Well, yeah, we're going to call this person back. We're going to tell them they don't need to worry about their Social Security disability is protected. They don't have to pay the debt. They've been sued. If they owe the money, they don't need to go to court. One thing we tell seniors is that if you are sued and there is a judgment against you, a federal law went into effect. It's a rule that tells banks since 2012, if they get a writ of garnishment on your bank account, they're to examine your bank account. And if you get money from a federal source like Social Security, they're to times that amount times 2 and protect that entire sum, regardless of whatever funds are in there or where they came from. So if you got $1,500 in Social Security, $3,000 in that bank account is protected. So this person from Oklahoma, if they decide they need our help, we're going to send a letter out to their creditors not to leave them alone. As far as the creditor that sued her, we're going to send a letter to the attorney that sued her, letting them know that her income is Social Security, she can't afford to pay that, or him or her. Now you might say, well, Eric, if it's small claims, I thought attorneys can't appear in small claims courts. Well, that's true. There's one exception. If it's a corporation, then an attorney can appear for the corporation. Okay, and most collection agencies are corporations, and so the small claims court was designed so that keep attorneys out of there, and that's fine. That's the way it usually works. Except that when it comes to debt collection, the attorneys are in there because all the debt collectors are corporations, and I would bet that the vast majority of lawsuits filed in small claims court are collection cases filed by attorneys for collection companies. Okay. So this couple calls us. Notes from one of our paralegals from Florida, and their age is both age 78. Let's read this. Her husband got sick and could not work. She had to live off her credit cards. She had 6 accounts with Bank of America and owes them $42,000. Concerned about a lien on her home, and they apparently report on her credit score. Her credit score went from 800 down to 500. She was considering paying it, but wants them to remove it from her credit report first. They say they will not do this. Well, let me just stop and go off topic for a second. Some seniors are worried about their credit score. A lot of them don't care. When people call helps, and one of the things we're going to ask them, do you have a credit card with a smaller balance or nothing is owed that you still want to keep? And if the answer is yes, you don't need to give us that. You can keep making that credit card payment and keep that credit card. As long as it's not backed by a bank with whom you have another credit card, you're not going to pay. So you could preserve that credit. The other thing, too, several years ago, we started a program, 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score. We pay 720 Credit Score, which is a company I know very well. They're very legitimate. We pay them to offer to our clients free that have been part of HELPS for at least 90 days. They can enroll in 720 Credit Score and rebuild your credit. Your credit is based on your recent credit history. So if you've got bad credit and don't pay the debt, they're going to write it off as uncollectible. They may still send it to a collection agency, but you can actually rebuild your credit. The credit bureau will base your credit on your recent credit history. You can get your credit back up to a 700 credit score within year and a half to 2 years. Okay. But anyway, let me go on with this. What this person said. We went over what we do. Do we negotiate debt? No, we don't do that. We don't need to negotiate debt. Our clients can't afford to pay the debt. She's very concerned about her credit score. She says she's going to need a vehicle in a couple of years. And she wasn't interested in our services, but may call us later. And she did. She called us a couple of weeks ago. And we explained again what we did. I guess it was her husband who called back. And we explained how their income would be protected, how their home is safe. They haven't been sued. Explain if they were sued, how their bank account would be protected. And they live in Florida, so their equity in their home is safe. And it looks like they enrolled in HELPS. Okay. So this person commented, they said, I heard that the IRS can collect all the Social Security and pensions. Is this correct? Well, the IRS can do about anything, but what they do as a practice, if they're going to try to collect from you, normally the most they would do is send you a letter saying they intend to offset 15% of your Social Security after 60 days. I don't see the IRS garnishing people's pensions. They legally can do it, but I don't see it happening. Okay? That's after 4 decades of practice. 30 to 40,000 bankruptcies. They don't do it. And as far as the taking money from your Social Security, 15%, it doesn't happen very often. I think nowadays with the way the computer systems are, the IRS knows that if your only income is Social Security, that you're probably going to qualify for what's called currently not collectible status. So they may send you notices, but they're not going to take steps to try to garnish your money from Social Security, 15%. If they were, you have 60 days to contact the IRS, and you can ask to get on what's called uh, currently not collectible status, CNC status. If you're a single person, you have income of about $2,500, even a little bit more or less, or $3,500, a little bit more or less, you can qualify for currently not collectible status on taxes. And one thing to remember is that your state taxes don't have to pay those. They're completely protected, just like a credit card debt is protected from. They can't take your Social Security or your pension. State tax can't. So this person contacts us from Tennessee. My only source of income is Social Security. I'm 72 years old. Looks like he lives in some subsidized housing. I receive a lot of collection letters, and I got sued, and I don't know how to respond. He says, I don't own any property, and I don't have any bank accounts except for my checking account to which my Social Security goes, and I use that to pay my rent and my utilities. I don't know how much you charge, but I need help. I will call a little bit, a few hours, he said. Well, okay. What we're going to tell this guy is that, your Social Security is protected. If you're sued and you owe the money, you don't need to do anything. They can get a judgment. I've already explained how twice the amount of your Social Security is protected, deposited in your bank account from garnishment. Your bank will do that automatically for you without you having to do anything. If you ask the bank manager about that, he's not going to know the rule. So I've yet to meet a bank manager that understands that rule, but there's a department of the bank that deals with that. Okay? So this guy from Tennessee doesn't need to worry. He's going to be fine. And if he doesn't want to deal with the creditors himself, he can call helps. When one of our clients is sued, or if they call and they've been sued, we're going to ask them to get us a copy of the lawsuit. Usually we just need the first 2 or 3 pages, the name of the attorney and the address and the case number. And we're going to write the attorney and explain that your income and Social Security is protected. You're not going to go to court. Mind them of the protected nature of your bank account. You're going to be fine. Okay? So this person writes in from Illinois. They say, I am 68 years old, retired, getting Social Security. I have guardianship over his 5 grandkids. My light and gas bill has spiraled out of control. The electricity more than the gas. I signed up with a program to help, but it wasn't a lot of help. I have to choose if I should get them something for Christmas or pay down on the light or gas bill. One thing helps can't do is, we don't have money to give to people. That's not what we do. But what we can do is tell you what debt you don't have to pay, so you've got money available. And we also try to give advice in other areas too. A lot of electrical companies or utilities will have programs where they can put you on a monthly payment plan on the past bill, or have you pay a certain amount. We'll talk to you about that. This person writes in, they have a credit. What about the Visa credit card owed to the credit union where all our money is in? Can they take our money? Yeah, if you don't pay the Visa card, they can. If you have a bank account with a credit union, whether you realize it or not, you signed an agreement with the credit union telling them that if you didn't pay a debt to them, they had authority to go into your bank account and take money out of your bank account to pay towards the debt. And they do it. Banks don't do that. Only exception is Truist Bank. Um, so if you're going to default on a credit union account, a debt you owe a credit union, you bank there, you're going to want to change to a different bank or a different credit union where you don't owe money. Now, they're probably not going to take the money out until you're behind several months. Okay, so if you have a credit card, or a debt with a credit union, you're not going to pay the credit union and you bank there, you're going to want to change to a different bank. So this person writes in, they had a question. They said, how about ways to reduce the impact that credit reports have on car insurance or other forms of insurance? Some states, you can pay higher car insurance if you have poor credit. Some states don't allow the car insurance companies to do that. California is an example, but a lot of states do permit it. What can you do to lessen the problem or solve it? Well, one is you can try to rebuild your credit, which we talk about. That's one reason we have this 7 steps to a 720 credit score for seniors that I talked about a few minutes ago. The other thing too is, if you're a senior on minimal income, you should have the smallest amount of insurance that you're allowed to have under the law. The reason is, I'll give you an example. Some states might say, okay, the minimum amount of insurance you have is, if you're in an accident, $25,000 to pay the other side. Well, a lot of accidents, you might hurt someone, they might incur a debt. They might have a claim against you for a lot more than $25,000. So if you get in an accident like that and you only have $25,000 insurance, your insurance company is going to pay the $25,000 to the other side, but you're going to have this. They could have a claim against you for a lot more. So what's my answer going to be? So what? They can't collect from you. You're on Social Security, you're on a pension, your income's protected. You don't need to have the maximum or a whole lot of insurance. Some people, if you've got a lot of assets, they might have coverage for $1 million, but you don't need more than the minimum. And if you just keep the minimum, the cost for your insurance is going to be a lot less. Now you might say, well, Eric, if I only have it for that amount, they're going to sue me. Well, normally the insurance company is going to settle it, and they're going to try to settle it with them dismissing the case against you. But if they don't, then all the insurance company has to do is just tender the $25,000. Should you worry? I used to do personal injury cases when I was a younger attorney, and this problem would come up pretty regularly. I'd have a good case against someone, and the insurance company would only have a minimal amount of insurance coverage, and I look at the file, and sometimes we'd get a report from the person's assets, and we'd find out they didn't really have anything. So if the other attorney finds out you're on Social Security, he realizes you don't have anything, so it's not worth his time to go after you for the money, because he's not going to be able to collect from you. So one way to lessen your insurance, if they do base it on credit reports, one is you can rebuild your credit, which we talked about. Second way is just keep minimal insurance. So Lying asks, what if you have 9 credit cards and can't pay one of them? Will the other credit cards stop you from using them? No, they shouldn't. Um, Credit cards normally, if you, we always tell our clients or people that enroll in helps, if you've got a credit card with a smaller balance or nothing is owed, there's no reason you can't keep that credit card. As long as it's not backed by a bank with whom you have another credit card, you're not going to pay. Now, is it possible the credit limit could be lowered? It could be. Sometimes the credit card company will do they do a soft pull on your credit. There's a way they can check your credit without you giving them permission, and they could determine that maybe you owe some more debt, and they might decide to lower the amount of your available credit. Yeah, I hear people complaining about that occasionally. Not a lot, but occasionally. But no, it's not automatic. If you don't pay if you got 9 credit cards, you don't pay 8 of them, you shouldn't worry about the one being canceled. Unless that credit card was backed by a bank where you had debt on another credit card, okay? Backed by the same bank. So if you don't pay one credit card and you have another credit card backed by the same bank, that bank's going to see that both credit cards are cut off. Follow me? If I owed my credit union money and I called or went to see them, would they let me slide on a payment and just add it at the end? I've used that benefit in the past, but now I don't owe them. Yeah, you do. They do that all the time. You'd be able to do that if you wanted to do that. You bet. How can I even rent an apartment now since my credit is ruined? It was 831 credit report. Now due to abuse, it's almost 600. No one will rent to me. Um, you know, we have a letter, we call it a landlord letter, that we'll send to any person, whether they're a member of HELPS or not, that explains to a prospective landlord that your income is Social Security or pension is protected under the law. It can't be taken from you. It'll always be available to pay rent. And we tell people that you can show that to a prospective landlord before you pay the application fee. Because a lot of landlords don't understand that seniors' income is protected. And a lot of times that will help you be able to get the rent. The other option is to, work to rebuild your rent. Landlords, a lot of them don't understand that, they worry about credit. Maybe if someone were to sue you and get a judgment, they could garnish you and take your money and you wouldn't be able to pay your rent. Well, that might be the case for a younger person that's working, has a job, but not for a senior who's getting Social Security or a pension. They can get sued by 100 different creditors. No one's going to be able to take their Social Security or their pension. So that money's always going to be available to pay rent. And that's essentially what that letter says in a different sort of way. Okay. Okay, this person writes in and says, I am paying the tax defense attorney to help me with my 12,000 IRS debt that I owe. They were not no help. So now starting in February, I'm having to pay back 200 per month and pay the tax attorney 240 a month until I've been paid off. Probably don't need to pay the tax. There's a lot of tax defense attorneys that have out of gone bankrupt or gone out of business. A lot of them have been disbarred um, for unethical practices. If you're a senior and you owe taxes, uh, you know, one thing, you can pay your taxes over 6 years on the IRS website. If you, I don't discourage people from paying their taxes, but if you can't afford to pay them, you get on currently not collectible status or pay just a small amount. So there's a way to deal with taxes yourself, and you don't necessarily need one of these companies that advertise that they help people with tax debt. And I mean, if we're talking about a lot of money, and you have a lot of income, that might be a different. But the seniors we help are generally modest or lower income seniors. Okay. So this person listened to me talk about this letter we sent, this landlord letter, and they asked, Also, is the letter to a prospective landlord a generic form letter, or is it specific to a single landlord? It's half and half. It mentions your name. It doesn't mention the specific landlord. So it's generic in a way, but it does mention you. It doesn't say this person, gives your name. And it seems to work for a lot of people. So this person called us, looks like yesterday, talked to one of our attorneys. Note says he called. We explained what we did. Explained what Helps does, and he was enrolled with Helps at no charge. He didn't have any extra money. He was sued. There was a judgment. He had a mobile home on a few acres. His only income is Social Security. It's directly deposited into his bank account, and every penny goes to pay the house payment. Very nice guy with a strong Southern accent. He thinks we are very nice and is very happy to be enrolled. Yeah. We sent him emails about home and the judgment and how his bank account was protected from garnishment. So this person contacts us from Oklahoma, 52 years old, $2,100 in Social Security. Hi, I'm disabled and I'm being sued for a credit card debt that I can no longer pay because I can't work. He's probably on Social Security disability. I was just calling because I saw your number on some videos on what to do. If you're on disability and you're getting sued again, apparently that's the topic. She gives her name and her phone number. Thank you so much. And then she called. This was she called earlier, and then she called again. Looks like yesterday, and it says I was served with a lawsuit on some credit card debt. I stopped paying around a year ago. Went over how her income was protected, and she looks like she enrolled in Helps. Didn't need to worry. So what we do again is we represent seniors and disabled persons who owe debt as their attorney to stop the collectors from bothering them. They can't call or send you demand letters. They have to communicate with us. You could still be sued, but they're not going to be able to collect from you. We're going to contact the attorney who sued you, let him know that your income is protected. You're not going to pay the debt. We're going to call you, explain why you don't need to go to court and why you don't need to worry. Okay? So a mom and daughter called us from Oregon, and I think I enrolled them yesterday. But they had called earlier, and then they called back. We talked to the daughter about what we did, and she said we'll do. They called back to do a joint call. And one thing she said is, I encourage the daughter, or maybe it was the mom, to call the credit card companies and to get off of auto pay. And then the daughter called back to go over what we did. Looks like on November 26th. And they said they would talk together and call us back. And I think they called yesterday, and I happened to talk to them together. Told them not to worry. We talked to a lot of children and with one of the parents on the line, not all the time, but occasionally. And I have a letter that, and it's an email, preloaded email that I'll send to a daughter or a son, and I call it, "Thank you for watching out for mom." I'm always glad to have a kid call about one of their parents that are having these problems. So someone's there to help them. Okay, this person calls us from Arizona. He's 79 years old. He gets 1650 in Social Security and approximately the same amount in VA benefits. He has credit cards, personal loans, and it says a flooring loan. I don't know what that is. Anyway, maybe it's a loan for installation of some flooring or something in his house or something. We went over what we do and explained how his bank account is protected. Sent him some emails on different topics. We've got about 300 or 400, maybe 500 preloaded emails on different topics that we send to people. We don't send all of them to you, but if there's one that applies, we'll send it. So they called back on the 26th, wanted us to call back so we could enroll, and then we talked to him yesterday. He asked a ton of questions, and we enrolled him. And they were excited. They said they wanted to talk to their friends about helps because they said a lot of people need this help and don't realize it's available. And boy, is that true. I enrolled this person, I think yesterday. She's 62, lives in Washington, and forced to go into retirement because of her health earlier than she planned on. $35,000 in debt, and had a mobile home in a park, space rent. And I was a little worried about that. The mobile home was worth somewhere between $100,000 to $150,000 in Washington. No one's going to take the mobile home, I explained. Virtually every state on a homestead exemption will also apply towards a mobile home. She's not going to, and a lot of times, a judgment can be a lien on real property. That means a home on land, but not a mobile home. There are a few exceptions, but in most states, a judgment is not a lien on a mobile home. It's only on a home on land. And for a lot of reasons, even a judgment on a home on land isn't going to be a problem that we've talked about. This person writes us, and they say, "My wife passed away, and when she passed away, I lost her retirement income. Probably maybe her Social Security, or maybe when she took her retirement, she didn't provide that he would be paid part of it when she passed on. She took it at a higher rate." He says, "I have a lot of credit card debt, and I struggle to pay it. And I'm with a debt management company. I just requested that they reduce how much money I pay them each month, so I have money for my medical needs. I would like assistance in dealing with creditors' calls and text messages, and have someone I can refer them to when they ask for a phone number. Can you help me?" Yeah, that's what we do. Uh, if you're signed up with a debt management or debt settlement company and you're a senior, one thing I ask seniors that are signed up with one of these companies is, when you enrolled with them, did they tell you, by the way, you don't need our help because all your income is protected? And with rare exceptions, a senior will tell me, no, they never did tell me that. In fact, I talked to some person yesterday, and I asked, did they tell you? They said, I don't remember if they told me that. I don't think so. I think all they talked about is, all they were trying to do is help me figure out how I could pay the debt. They didn't tell me that there was ways that I could avoid paying the debt. It was just how I could pay the debt. And I explained to her, I said, well, if they would have told you that there was ways you couldn't afford to pay the debt, you would have enrolled with them and they wouldn't make money off you. And she said, that's right. So because of that, with few exceptions, these companies will not tell seniors that their income is protected. They just enroll them anyway. Okay. Person asked, they said, we've only voluntarily turned in our travel trailer several months ago, it looks like. Oh man, more than that. 7 or 8 months, 8 or 9 months ago. They picked it up 1 week later, and then I later heard that they contacted me and said it would be auctioned off. We're only on Social Security only. I can't afford it anymore. I'm 72 and my wife is 70 years old. Yeah, if you've got a car, a travel trailer, an RV that you can't afford, you can agree to let it go back. Just, I tell people, if you've got a credit card, if you've got a travel trailer or a car you can't afford to pay, don't call them while you're current on the payment. Wait till you're behind, and then they call you, and then you can tell that person, hey, I can't afford it. Come and get it. Tell them where it's at. Uh, Now, if you want to drive it, you could still drive it. If it's a car, for example, you might be able to hang on to it for several months before they repossess it. If you are behind on it and it's in danger of being repossessed, make sure you keep your personal property out of it. Okay, that way, if it gets picked up, you don't risk losing anything that's in the car. If you're going to drive it and not make the payment on it, make sure you keep it insured, because if you take the insurance off it and you get pulled over, you could get cited for no insurance and it could affect your driver's license. So you're going to want to keep it insured at the very least. It floors me that I could have gotten this help for 2 years already. That's what Turbo says. I don't know if you're talking about helps or not, but I'll apply it towards helps. That's one reason we always ask our clients and others to share what helps does with others. A lot of seniors need this help, have no idea it's available. Okay. Well, I've run out of things to talk to. We haven't had a terrible amount of questions today, which is fine. We're going to be tomorrow, same time. If you have any questions, call us 855-435-7787. You can also make comments on the comment portion. Please press the like button if you don't mind. It helps us get more people. A lot of people find out about us through YouTube Live. So thanks for your help. I'm going to be doing another YouTube Live with Senior Living here in a few minutes. And if you want to watch more videos from helps other than our website, you can go to Senior Living, and they've got a lot of videos with helps. So have a great day, and I will talk to you all tomorrow. God bless. Bye.